Hi guys, so today I'll be talking about how to stay calm, cool, and collected. A lot of my friends have asked me how the heck I'm able to stay so level-headed in stressful situations, so I thought about it and I reasoned how I've sort of come to be this way, and I thought I would put some tips for those of you that might struggle with, keeping yourself stress-free. So the first tip that I have that I think a lot of people are aware of is that stress is a silent killer, and nearly every disease to some extent is associated with stress. I like to remind myself that my body is a temple. I only have one and it has to last me for the rest of my life. So I remind myself that there's nothing more important than my health, and if stress is going to impact my health, I have to eliminate it as much as possible. So if I'm ever in a stressful situation, I like to do what's called a state break. So I'll listen to something funny, I'll go for a walk, I'll listen to some music that kind of hypes me up, and I'll keep myself grounded. I'll try to keep myself as grounded as possible throughout the day. So number two, what does it mean to be grounded? How do you keep yourself grounded? For me, it happens naturally, but some people need to work on this. And that's totally okay, because the more you train yourself to be in a grounded state of mind, the easier it'll be to just naturally be in this state of mind. What I usually do is I take a moment to just remind myself what I'm grateful for. Another really good idea is to just go for a walk and focus in on your breath. Focus on the fact that you have eyes, healthy eyes that can see the changing, leaves in the fall. Feel your body propelling itself and how lucky you are to have, legs and a family and to just be alive in this moment. So if you're somebody that tends to think about the future or, think about the argument that you had like 2 hours ago, rather than the present moment, you will have to sort of tell yourself, hey, be present. For me, whether it's through practice or just, it comes naturally to me, I just do this on a regular basis. I don't really need to remind myself to be present. I always, like when I'm going for a walk, am thinking about the happiness that I feel in that very moment. Another thing that I do is I twist situations so that I see them from a positive perspective. For example, in college, when I would get a bad grade, I wouldn't get down on myself. Instead, I would think about how lucky I was to be taking an exam instead of, working hard physical labor. How lucky I was to be in college. How lucky I was to be educating myself, to, have time to educate myself. So I always try to twist, any situation to see it from a different perspective and see it as an opportunity to improve myself, rather than, just fill myself up with negative emotions. The next piece of advice I have, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is to journal. Tim Ferriss, who is like my god, wrote in the book Tools for Titans that he does a 5-minute journal where he will write down, and I have it written here, some daily affirmations, 3 amazing things that happened that day, and a few things that he's grateful for. And this forced him to think about the things that he had rather than focus on what he was pursuing. So again, focusing on the moment rather than the future. And my second to last piece of advice is to go listen to Tony Robbins. He is an amazing motivational speaker, and he talks about state breaks, which I mentioned earlier, and power poses. And you might have heard of power poses. An example is when you sit up with your chest out, maybe your hands on your hips before an interview to feel confident. And the goal is to change the biochemistry. So let's say you're in a bad mood. You have to get out of that state. And talking yourself out of it isn't going to work until your body actually feels a little better. So you can do that by changing the way you're breathing or closing your eyes and imagining just like the perfect scenario. Going for a run, like I said, listening to some music. And I know that's the last thing that you want to do in some of these situations, but it really truly helps. When you change your biochemistry, you can then, write some affirmations and write, what you're grateful for and actually truly believe it. So I would highly, highly recommend you check out Tony Robbins. I'll link some of his videos that I find helpful. And my last piece of advice is to find a philosophy that works for you. I would consider myself a nihilist, which is a little bit controversial because historically that is a very pessimistic view of life. Essentially what nihilists believe is that there's no true meaning in life. You sort of just exist. And I'm not searching for my purpose. I just aim to be happy. And I realize that we are not that important. What happens in my life isn't really that important in the grand scheme of things. And I will link an interesting article from The Guardian below, but essentially there was a quote in there that I found to really resonate with me. I was chronically stressed at work, overwhelmed by expectations, grasping for a sense of achievement or greater purpose, and tiptoeing towards full-on exhaustion. Then it hit me. Who cares? One day I'll be dead, and no one will remember me anyway. I'm just a chunk of meat hurtling through space on a rock. Pointless, futile, meaningless. So I believe that, this works for me. It's not for everybody, but if you just live and realize that we are all very insignificant and, for the most part, anything is possible. Life is absurd. For me, it helps me to, I just don't get stressed out because there's nothing to get stressed out about. Nothing is really that important. So again, that's a very interesting philosophy that some people might not agree with, but it works for me and I thought I'd share. But that's what I do. Those are my tips and tricks, and I hope that you found them helpful.